Hello, this is Andrew. Welcome to the tutorial for how to use Tabletop Simulator to play the My Little Pony collectible card game. I'm going to go ahead and start a new game. So you click Create, and you're going to want to do multiplayer. I've got these settings, doesn't really matter. You can put whatever you want in there as long as everybody else knows what you're doing. So you hit Create Server. This puts a server up on the Tabletop Simulator area. So you go to the workshop. From there, you go Browse, type in MLP, and at this very moment, it just happens to be the first one in the list. It's the one that's built by Potamayo, and it looks vaguely like this. You click Subscribe, and then you'll have it available. So you use Shift-Tab to get back out of that, and this is the one right here. I already have it downloaded. So then you click Load, and it takes a minute. Now, this is a rather, well, not as intense as some things, but it is kind of intense. So here we are. Loading complete. Then it takes a minute to work everything out. Depends on the speed of your computer, of course. So here we are. So there's a few options here that you'll notice immediately. First of all, everybody's got this image here. You can actually change that. So currently I'm set up as the white player, but I can change my color. Let's go green. Seems interesting. Just moves them automatically. Then you click on one of these, and click on that one, and then it loads it, and there it is. New playmat. Go ahead and get them all different. Right. So now they're all different. I'm going to go ahead and play as this one. So there's a few different commands here, and it's important that you know what they are. So middle click and hold and move around is the pan command. That lets you go left and right, all that kind of stuff. You can mouse scroll, middle scroll wheel, to zoom in and out. You can right click and pan, or right click and hold, and then rotate, and that lets you rotate the camera. So using all of that, you can kind of go wherever you want. You can zoom in on things. You can do stuff that way. The left click is how you interact with things. So if I pick this up, you want to click and hold, and then move it, all that kind of stuff. These are all infinite stacks of tokens. So if I grab one of those, if I grab another one, if I grab another different one, you can do all that kind of stuff. And then so if you have a stack of cards, if you put them all in the same place, they will stack together, much like this. Now, if you hit F, you can flip them over. If you hit R, you can shuffle them once, a few times. You can just keep doing it, doesn't matter. Then if you want to draw some cards, you hit a number. So if you type the number 1, it lets you draw 1 card. If you type the number 3, it lets you draw 3 cards. You can only draw as many cards as are in that deck. So, yeah. You can click and drag and select multiple things, put them wherever. You just grab stuff and put it into your hand like this. Now, of course, you're also going to need to be able to exhaust cards, or tap them, or whatever you want to do. So you do that by doing this. Now, I would like to point out that I forgot to mention, you do that by hitting Q and E. Now, you might notice it's turning in sixths. Well, that's because of this little icon up here. It says rotation degrees. So by default, it actually starts at 15, which is, I think, the least useful denomination. But you can actually increase that. 45 is not bad. Lets you do things like this. I usually have it at 90, because then it lets you very easily and very succinctly tell it where it's tapping to. If you just middle click, by the way, it zooms into that thing by a fixed amount. So, yeah. So something else. If you just click and drag on a deck, you only get 1 card. If you click and hold and then drag, you'll get the whole thing. It's important if you've got a bunch of things, and sometimes you need to do stuff. Anyway. So that tells you how to use Tabletop Simulator, and that's actually useful for pretty much anything, for any Tabletop Simulator program. So you can also grab these things, they all come from different stuff there. That doesn't matter. How do you import a deck? Well, this is an interesting thing, because there's a couple of different ways. Now, of course, the best way, if you happen to have one, is you go to Objects, Saved Objects, and then you go find whatever thing you've got. So I've got this deck, and you just drag it in. So I made this one a while ago, and it has to load, because it's got a lot of different images in there. There we go. So then what you can do is just sit this here, and have your main sitting here. So then you shuffle, and then you right-click, search for your starting problem, all that kind of stuff. This is also assuming that you already know how to play, so I'm assuming that you already know what your starting problem is, all that kind of fun stuff. But now, here we go. You're all set up. Your opponent also needs to be set up, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. But for that, I'm actually going to show you the other way of doing it. So let's say you don't have a deck already made. Now, granted, there is a converter to use to make those decks automatically, but let's say for the sake of argument that you don't have that. So you go to Ponyhead, which is the thing that you do for that, and then you get the URL for the deck that you built, and what you're looking for is this little thing over here, right? There's a little deck generator. So you paste your Ponyhead URL into there, hit import, does the same thing, loads the deck and everything, but it doesn't need anything else. You don't need a JSON file with your deck in it. You don't need to put it into the right location or anything, it just does it automatically. And if you want to, you can take this and you can save the object. Put it somewhere like that, and then like that. So then you have this saved. So then you can go to saved objects and then load it up again. There it is. It's already loaded, so it's there. Okay. But anyway, so now you go find your starting problem, drag it out from there. Oh, by the way I'm doing that, if you right-click on an object, on like a deck or something that has many things in it, you can say search, and that brings up this window. You can actually do that with any deck or any bag that contains objects. Can't do it on these infinite bags because they all have the same thing, but, you know. Whoops. I had a couple of things selected there. Interestingly, if you drag select and then mouse over something else, it actually does anything that you have moused over and anything that you have selected. So if I've got that selected, I'll just do that. If I have both, and then whatever you're mousing over acts as though it's selected. Anyway, that's not what I'm doing here though. We want to shuffle this, bring it up there, bring this on top. Nope. I'll do that. I'll do that. And something interesting you might notice, these cards are bigger than these cards. That's just an artifact of the way that it was put together. This one is straight through this importer, whereas this deck was made using the online tool. Anyway, so that doesn't matter. But so now that we're here, so first thing you want to do, shuffle your deck. Of course, you're going to determine a first player randomly. You can take a die, hit R to roll it, or you can also shake it a bit and then roll it that way. Doesn't matter. We're assuming that you win the initiative. Doesn't matter. So then you hit 6 on top of here. Typing 6 will draw you 6 cards. That is, of course, the starting card limit for this game. So, this is an interesting hand. So something else you can do is if you want to point something out to your opponent during a game, you can hit Tab. Tab makes a little arrow, which is quite useful. Also, you'll notice there's these things here. So you can sometimes an object will come with states, and basically a state is like a different image that you can show depending on what's going on with it. So you can actually do that with these. These have a couple of different states. So you can do things that way. There. So a bunch of different states that you can have these things in. But, yeah. So, you right click and you can do that. I think you can also... No, that doesn't work. Depending on what it is, you can change the state by typing a number, but then if it's something you can draw, that overrides it. So, and of course, once you have it, this particular object anyway, once you take it, it doesn't have another state. But you can also get rid of it by hitting delete. Gets rid of it completely. Anyway, so I'm not going to take this hand. So the way that you do a mulligan, you flip it over in your hand, put it on the table, group it, and then take it back on top of the deck. There isn't really a convenient way to just put them back in the deck, but then you shuffle, draw your next 6, and, well, this isn't better, but whatever, it'll do. So then you start your turn, and you got 2, right? So this button down here keeps track of both of these score points, and as they go up, it moves this amount up as it should. So if I go here, it moves that up. If I increase this one, you'll notice this one went up to 3 again. That kind of thing. Anyway, so it goes up as it should for the MLP card game. And if anybody gets to 15, they get sparkles. Anyway, so turn begins, you get 2 action tokens, and then you pass, you know, as you do in this game. Then you take 2, you draw a card, and here we go. So, I don't know, you pay 4, make it smooth. Now, smooth can be any color, right? When it comes into play, you give it a color. Well, you could, like, depending on what it is, you could actually just go a color tint and then change it here. Unfortunately, that has no impact on cards, because the cards just use an image, so they don't really work that way. So the mod itself has provided these things. So you do this, you do that. And this indicates what color it is. So what I just did there is Control-C, Control-V, Control-V, Control-V. You can also copy the purple ones or whatever. You can also change the color tint on these. So if you want a red one, you know, because that matters. Anyway, that. So that's what we're doing here. So then you gain a point, and that puts a time counter on Paradox Pony. So I don't have time counters here, but we do have these. So what I'm going to do is right-click and rename it so that when you mouse over it, it says what it is. You also want to make sure to give it a different color tint for, you know, aesthetic reasons. I like to make them blue because I like blue. Anyway, yeah, so there's that. So then they take their turn, they do whatever, I don't know, they're over here or something. Whatever. So then turn begins. You gain 2 action tokens, draw a card. And in this deck, it's not really much to do. I guess you could change this to purple to give you a little bit more options, but still, don't really have that much to do. You want to save AT. So you do that, you do this, get another point, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just following all the rules for the character that I'm using. So then next turn, gain 3 AT, draw a card. There we go. We got something to do. So we do that, we do this, and then you put it out like that. Notice that I flipped it around in my hand. If you'd wait until you flip it around in the middle of the table, they could see it first. Anything that's in your hand, here, let me show that off. Anything that's in your hand is going to be face down. So even if you can see it, your opponents cannot. So, yes, very good. The Rainbow Dash deck. Right. So then, it's been what, 3 turns, 4 turns, something like that. We're just gonna assume that happened. Anyway, so I can move this over here. Spend 2 more to play this guy, and then spend 1 more for this. Want to make sure that you're solving it. So yeah, there we go. So then we start a face, so we gain a point, which also does that. And then we start a face off. That flips Rainbow Dash. Then we do that face off by dragging a card off the top of the deck, flipping it over. And of course you got to do the same thing over here. Blam, blam. Alright. And of course, Rainbow Dash is competitive and all this other stuff. So, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 versus 4, 8. So it didn't win by 5 or more, but did win by a lot. So then everybody goes home. Got another point here. And then the only real way to do this, you flip it over, you grab the deck, stick it on top, and then you grab the deck and put it back. But once a problem is solved, you can click this button here that says Solve Problem, and it automatically fixes it. So that's a fun thing. Anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much how this goes. You then continue the game as you normally would. And you keep track of the score using these buttons. By the way, left click moves it up, right click moves it down. So, and yeah, I hope that was informative. Thank you.